Hey everyone, welcome to Countered, where we look at popular or problematic champions and discuss ways to deal with them. My name is Chakras, and today we look at LeBlanc in the mid lane. So LeBlanc isn't much of a dominant mid laner nowadays despite her popularity and her somewhat high ban rate. Her win rate is currently pretty low, hovering around 47% across all leagues. That said, she's still a problematic champion for a lot of players, and when snowballing she can easily take over a game by herself. So, what makes her a strong pick? LeBlanc has a very high single target burst tied to very strong mobility via her distortion and her mimic distortion. With 2 dashes and the ability to blink back to the starting point of said dash, LeBlanc becomes a champion that is very deceiving and slippery and has a relatively low risk when dashing around. Once she's ahead, she's a deadly roamer who can easily impact side lanes with her amazing burst. Even in tougher lane matchups, LeBlanc can just default to holding the lane and not go for trades. She's also great at assisting in ganks. Her burst is usually enough to kill, so just bringing some crowd control from the jungle is enough to lock down targets and give her kills. Her main weakness is that her wave clear ability Distortion is also a key ability for damage and trades, so she can rarely do both. When defending sieges, LeBlanc's Distortion is a very risky tool to use to clear minions as you open yourself up to taking damage when dashing forward, so she's dependent on her team to have other sources of wave clear in these situations. By late game and when everyone is grouped up, it also becomes much harder to burst the target without being punished or denied with crowd control or exhaust, for example. In lane, the best way to nullify LeBlanc's early game is to shove her in and put her under tower. When pushed in, LeBlanc loses all her pressure and is forced to use Distortion and Sigil of Malice to CS. Without Distortion available, she can never really go for trades with you. If she does, it means she'll lose a bunch of CS and you will just outfarm her. Early on, the cooldown on Distortion is extremely long. This essentially means that it's very easy to exploit. Once Distortion is down, you have a big window of time to go for a trade where there is not much LeBlanc can do. In skirmishes and teamfights, the best way to stop her is with point and click hard CC. Stuns, snares, or silences are excellent options that can always be used right after she uses Distortion to close in. Skill shots also work, but she can always dodge them by reactivating her ability. In later stages of the game, LeBlanc's main strength lies in picking off stragglers that are isolated from their team. So if you're a squishy AD carry or mid laner, you should probably stick to your team for extra protection. If your champion has a hard crowd control ability that is targeted or easy to land, try to save it and use it once LeBlanc comes in order to lock her down and kill her before she can escape. Now that we have gone over LeBlanc's strengths, weaknesses, and how to abuse these weaknesses, we can look at some good matchups you can use to pick against her right from Champion Select. Number 1 is Malzahar, and the current iteration of Malzahar is extremely annoying to deal with for LeBlanc. First off, he relentlessly pushes the lane by just using Malefic Visions, Void Swarm, and Call of the Void. He pushes much faster than LeBlanc and can easily shove her, forcing her to use her own skills to kill the minion waves under her tower. Secondly, Void Shift makes it incredibly hard for LeBlanc to burst him, as she'll need to pop the passive first and foremost in order to do damage. This essentially means that she needs to then back off and find a window to go in again when the passive is down, provided Malzahar isn't already at a safe distance. After level 6, using Distortion to close in on Malzahar is extremely dangerous as he can simply cast his ultimate to lock her down. Malzahar will usually not have enough damage to solo kill LeBlanc, but with his ultimate it's easy to assist in a gank scenario and secure the kill. He also has a silence, and while it's hard to land on a mobile target such as LeBlanc, hitting it can be absolutely devastating as the window in which she is silenced is enough for Malzahar or his teammates to follow up and kill her. By late game, killing Malzahar becomes increasingly difficult. He becomes tankier with items such as Rylai's, his passive is up more often, and his damage is off the roof. A single use of Malefic Visions can easily take most of a squishy's health bar. Number 2 is Syndra, and Syndra is considered by a lot of LeBlanc players to be one of the hardest matchups, despite also being considered a skill matchup. However, if you have experience on this champion, you can absolutely obliterate LeBlanc. First and foremost, her wave clear is better than LeBlanc's and on a much lower cooldown. If Syndra just wants to play safe, she has the pushing power to just force LeBlanc under turret with Dark Sphere cast. Since it also has a high range, it can simultaneously be used as a pushing and harassing tool. Secondly, Syndra can nullify LeBlanc's main damage skill. Scatter the Weak can be used to cancel out Distortion and thus cancel LeBlanc's main damage ability while doing damage to her at the same time. Lastly, Unleashed Power, Syndra's ultimate, locks onto LeBlanc even after her passive pops, This essentially means that even if the clone pops, the damage will continue going on to LeBlanc even during her invisibility period, as the skill is a targeted ability. If you're playing this matchup against LeBlanc, remember not to use Dark Sphere too often or you'll run out of mana. Dark Sphere plus Scatter the Weak combo should be mostly used to counter LeBlanc's distortion. Using it aggressively opens up to potential outplays and windows of time that LeBlanc can abuse. Finally, there's Lissandra. Now, Lissandra isn't the best in lane versus LeBlanc, especially pre-6. That said, she can hold her own and in later stages of the game, lock down LeBlanc in skirmishes or teamfights. Pre-6, Lissandra can use Ring of Frost followed by Ice Shard whenever LeBlanc uses Distortion to go in for a trade, thus guaranteeing that she can at least go even. Post level 6, Lissandra can completely lock down LeBlanc with her Frozen Tomb followed by Ring of Frost. If LeBlanc ever tries to close in on a skirmish or teamfight, she can get instantly locked and blown up. In this matchup, some LeBlanc players will opt to run Cleanse over Ignite. This helps escaping Lissandra's claws, but severely hinders her all-in power in lane and in roams. Apart from matchups, there are also other things to have in mind to shut down LeBlanc and stop her from snowballing. If you're laning against her, you should probably run magic resistance glyphs. Much of her strength comes from the early levels, so the extra defense stats can really come in handy. Apart from that, an early Negatron Cloak if you're an AP champion, or an early Hex Drinker if you're AD, can help immensely to make sure she can't outright kill you. The other scary aspect of LeBlanc is her roaming. If you lose track of her and you're behind, she'll easily sneak out of lane, go bot lane and grab kills there, and all of a sudden she's snowballed out of control. In order to stop this, covering lane exits with wards is incredibly important, so you can immediately ping her once she starts leaving lane. This is of added importance if you went back to base or if you're behind and she's zoning you and pushing you in. That's going to be all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Countered, and I'll see you guys next week.